Hi, my name is Ruth Friedman, and I was in the first graduating class of Yeshivat Maharat in 2013. Ever since then, I've been serving as the Maharat at Ohev Shalom, the National Synagogue in Washington, D.C. Achotenu at hayi le'alfei revava. Our sister, may you grow into 1,000 multitudes. That is a verse that I have been using since I got here to serve as the Maharat at Ohev Shalom, mostly in a Simchat Bat. It's a verse that I've used to welcome daughters into our community over and over. And of course, it is a verse that I really first was introduced to with the graduation of Yeshivat Maharat in 2013. And so it's a verse that we've used to escort girls as they enter our community and women as we've reached new stage of leadership in the Jewish community. And we've always focused on the first part. May you grow into myriads. May you have influence that radiates throughout the world. But there's a second half of that verse that doesn't get quite as much attention. But I think that if we look at it in depth, we see another beautiful lesson emerge. So after Lavan and Betuel say, Achotenu at hayi le'alfei revava, they give Rivka this blessing. They add another part, V'yirash zar'ech et sha'ar sonav, and may your descendants inherit the gates of those who hate them. Now, when we look at this verse, what a lot of the commentaries often do is immediately draw and connect this to the blessing that God gives to Abraham just a couple chapters before, right after the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. And God has a somewhat similar blessing. May you grow into a nation, and v'yirash zaracha et sha'ar oivav, and may your descendants inherit the gates of their enemies. And because this is such similar language, except for one word, and because Rivka is seen in many ways as being the person of the next generation who carries on that covenant and that responsibility of growing the Jewish people into a nation, we just see that as being connected. And often those words are even translated as the same blessing. May your descendants inherit the gates of their foes. But actually, there is an important difference. For Abraham, the word is oyev, enemy. And for Rivka, it's about those who hate her and her descendants. So what's the difference between enemy and hatred? An enemy is used in the Torah to refer to a person or a group of people that is at odds with another group. For example, the Egyptians, after the crossing of the Red Sea, are referred to as an oyev of the Israelites. And that, of course, makes sense. These are two nations, and the Egyptians have enslaved the Israelites. And yes, the Israelites, of course, they see them as enemies. So that makes sense, and that's the common way I think that we think of the word enemy today. And Abraham, who's the father of the entire nation, yes, it makes sense to assume that he as a nation will inevitably have some enemies. That's how nations work. But with Rivka, why is the word sonav, those who hate her descendants? Why hatred and not enemy? So in order to think about that, I wanted to look at the role of hatred in the Torah. We see hatred in different contexts than oyev. For example, Leah is referred to as snu'ah. She is the hated wife, as opposed to Rachel, who is loved by Yaakov. Now, there's no reason given to us for why Leah is hated. It's certainly not that she's ever done anything to Yaakov. The only thing we know about her is that she has soft eyes. And so it seems like Yaakov's hatred of her is born out of him just not liking her. And of course, that is a dynamic that creates a tremendous amount of pain throughout the rest of Breshit, between the wives and between the brothers and the sons. So hatred is something that I think we can argue is even almost baseless at times, that there isn't really a reason, a good reason, for why hatred exists. And so that is the blessing that Lavan and Betuel give to Rebekah. Not that your descendants will inherit the gates of their enemies, but that they'll inherit the gates of those who hate them. Now, the amazing thing about hatred in the Torah is, first of all, on the one hand, it's this very negative and really toxic sentiment. The ability to hate someone for a surface reason and not a real reason is a terrible thing. But also, in Vayikra, the Torah gives us a way of actually fighting it and fighting hatred and fixing it. So in Vayikra, Leviticus 19:17, God tells us, Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha, hocheach tochiach et amitecha, velo tisa alav chet. You shall not hate your kinsfolk in your heart. Reprove your kinsman, and incur no sin because of him. So let's break that down. It's 3 stages. First, you may not hate your kinsman or your brother in your heart. I am not allowed to hate someone internally in my mind. That is not allowed. And how do you fix that? What do I have to do? Instead, I must reprove that person. I have to confront them and talk to them about what the dynamic is and about why I might harbor that feeling of hatred towards them. Hatred, first of all, here is acknowledged as something that, yes, does exist in your heart. It is an internal feeling, but also one that can be remedied by engaging with the object of that hatred and talking about it. And that's a very important message to be included in with Rivka, that as you grow into multitudes, as you spread throughout the world, that also you be able to engage with those who harbor ill will towards you. But we also have to focus on the last part, velo tisa alav chet, and you should incur no sin because of that. So what does that mean? Rashi and others comment and say what this means is that it's not enough to just have hatred towards someone and then confront them about it, but you have to do it in a way in which you are not going to embarrass them, in a way in which you are not going to incur more guilt. So if I, as an example, have hatred towards someone, I cannot just walk up to them at Kiddush in front of 300 people and say, you did this terrible thing to me, and I hate because of you, and we should talk about it, and just do it in a public way. That embarrasses them, and that therefore makes the problem worse. No, not only do you have to confront them about this hatred, but you also have to do it in a way that preserves or enhances the relationship and preserves the dignity of that person. And so what the sum total message, I think, of this verse is that hatred can exist in your heart, that if you talk to the person towards whom you feel this way about it, you can fix that. And you also, just to nail that, to remind us of what we really are trying to do here, you have to do it in a way that respects them and will better that relationship. So, the significance of this coming after the blessing of may you grow into thousands of myriads is enormous. What this teaches us is that a wonderful blessing to someone is that may you not just be you, but that may your influence and may you serve as a role model. And was that something that others will look to you, and that your influence will grow and spread, and that many will look to you. But that's not enough. Part of that is, may your descendants inherit the gates of those who hate them. May you also, as part of that process, in that growth, may you also be able to confront and encounter those who harbor irrational hatred and feelings towards you and be able to try to repair those relationships. That may feel like an unfair burden, but I think is also one that is important and one that speaks to the role of a leader, of anyone who seeks to have that kind of influence over others. It's not enough to just spread that influence, but also along the way, you have to be able and willing to engage those who feel hatred or ill will towards you, and not just engage them in a way to dismiss them or to disprove them or to throw them away, but engage them in a way that brings them into a relationship with you and brings them into your circle. And this is such a beautiful message for all of us, for leaders, and especially at this time that we now find ourselves in as we begin 2019. We've seen that, unfortunately, certainly in the United States, there's a lot of hatred right now that is born out of ignorance, that is born out of a lack of a relationship. And the reminder to us is our goal is not just to triumph over that hatred, but it's really to engage with that hatred. And through human connection, hopefully we can start to break down those walls and be more and more willing and able to grow together as one.